maybe somewhere in the diaspora. I want to give you a very warm welcome, and I hope that this evening session is going to be a very interesting one and one that is going to be very useful for you as you go about doing this business of ours. For those of you who are new or maybe are joining us for the first few times, I'll introduce myself once again. My name is Betty Oloo, a long-time Neolife distributor. And Pascal, my husband, and myself do our business. We live in Pretoria, but we have businesses in different parts of Africa. And always it is our pleasure to spend this Thursday evening sharing about our products as well as the way to do our business. So wherever you are, I hope that you are prepared to spend this 1 hour benefiting from what we have prepared to share with you. And as always, you're very welcome to send questions. Unfortunately, I'm not able to answer the questions during the session itself, but I'm always happy to answer the questions that are sent to me on my phone. Or from time to time, we also do a Q&A in which we pick up some of the questions that we have received and deal with them during a Q&A session. So a very warm welcome once again. And as you might have seen from your invitation, my session today is going to be about type 2 diabetes, a very unfortunate illness that has become very common among us. And here on our continent of Africa, it is reaching the stages of being an epidemic. And since it is a lifestyle-related illness, we are quite well positioned to not only help people with our products, but also to educate them about how to adjust their lifestyle so that they can resolve the problems that are related to this illness and improve their quality of life. So just to introduce the session, diabetes type 2 is one of two kinds of diabetes. There's a different one that is called diabetes type 1. And this is not what we are going to be talking about today, but just to briefly say that type 1 diabetes is an illness in which the body produces too little or no insulin, and it tends to be genetic or autoimmune. It tends to appear in childhood or adolescence, and it is advisable to be under medical supervision when you have type 1 diabetes, because you need a medical practitioner to carefully manage the diabetes in your the insulin in your system, because in type 1, your body is actually not producing the amount of insulin that is required. So the management of it is very important in order to keep the illness well managed. So the one we are going to be talking about today is type 2 diabetes, which is actually a metabolic illness in which our glucose management system has been damaged as a result of things we are going to talk about. And this leads to the accumulation of glucose in the blood and in the tissues of the body, where it acts as a toxin. Glucose, I will explain briefly, is the fuel material in our body. So we often talk about it as sugar or glucose. The terms can be used interchangeably. But the thing is that if we take any kind of carbohydrate, whether it is rice, bread, chapati, potatoes, all these different types of starch, the body is going to digest it, and out of it, the main byproduct is going to be glucose, which the body uses as a fuel for the different activities as well as for growth. So all our activities in our body require energy, and the fuel from which the body gets that energy is this glucose that we are talking about. So the body has got a system which makes sure that the glucose is, the levels of glucose in the body is well managed, so that we do not have too little or too much. We just need enough to make sure that we are well provided with the fuel for the energy that we want to put out. But the margin is quite narrow. It does not extend one way or too much or too little. The body likes to manage things in a very narrow margin. So if we have this unfortunate situation of type 2 diabetes, then sometimes the glucose can accumulate in the system, and this accumulation can become toxic to the tissue. So you may find that certain organs, especially those which have got fine very narrow blood vessels are going to undergo damage. So here we are thinking about organs like the eyes, the kidney, and so on. So a normal healthy body has an efficient management system for making sure that the glucose is staying within the required range. And there are two organs which cooperate with the brain to make sure that the specific hormones are produced and the amounts of glucose are well managed so that you have enough for energy, but you do not have such a lot that it starts to be a problem. So, of course, we take the carbohydrates in our diet and it goes through our digestive system, from which we are going to absorb its byproduct, the main one of which we are interested is glucose. And this is going to be distributed in the blood circulatory system to supply all the different cells in our body with this glucose, which is the fuel that they use, that is burned to provide energy for them. So the normal range of blood glucose is between 70 to 140 milligrams of glucose per each deciliter of blood. So it's supposed to remain between 70 and 140 milligrams per deciliter of blood at any given moment. And you can see that this is a very narrow margin. And there are two organs which are in charge of ensuring that the blood glucose remains within this narrow range. The two organs are the liver and the pancreas. So the liver, as we know, is in our abdomen, that big red organ that we have in there. It is a very important organ for very many things, including metabolism and detoxification. But in the case of glucose, it's at work when we are not eating, that is in between meals. So in between meals, that is when we are not providing ourselves with food, what the liver does is that it draws glucose out of storage. So glucose is normally stored in small amounts in the liver in a form that is called glycogen. So if you hear the term glycogen, it still means glucose in the storage form. So what normally happens is that some of the glucose that we absorb from our diet is stored in small amounts in the liver as glycogen. And when we are not eating, this is why we are able to continue with our life when we are not eating, because then what the liver does is that it draws out this stored glucose and releases it into the bloodstream to be circulated and used for energy in the different parts of our bodies. Or it can also instruct the fatty tissues in our body to release fats, which can then be converted and used to be fuel for energy. So the liver can do one of two things. It can either release the glycogen that it is storing, and there it becomes glucose, which we can then use for energy. Or if the levels of glycogen are already low, then what the liver will do is message the fatty tissues, and the fatty tissues will then release some of the stored fats, which can then be used to provide us with energy. Now, the second organ, which is the pancreas, and a smaller organ than the liver, but is also found in our abdomen, is at work when we are eating. So what it does is that it produces the famous hormone that we call insulin, which facilitates the distribution of the glucose which we are absorbing from the food we are digesting through our bloodstream to different places. So one of the places will, of course, be the liver, where it is going to be converted into glycogen and stored, or it can send the insulin can instruct the cells to absorb glucose for their own use from the blood circulatory system. And if we have more glucose than we need for our energy, then what it's going to do is instruct the body to convert the excess into fat, which is then stored into the fat cells. So this is how the two organs work in order to make sure that the glucose we need is there and available for us, and any extra is stored out of the way, where it can be released only when we need it. That is when there is no food in our system. And so by the working of these two organs together with the brain and the hormones that they produce, we are able to keep the blood glucose within that range, which the body likes to keep it. Now, the situation changes when, for example, our diet supplies much more glucose than we need for our activities. Much of this excess will then be converted into fat, which can lead to excessive weight gain. It can also lead to liver damage, as well as certain heart and blood disorders like high blood pressure. So all these things are linked together when we have got too much more glucose in our system than we need for our activities, because then our body does not want it to accumulate there in the blood. What it does is that it wants to put it away somewhere, either in storage or in use. Now, what causes the glucose system to fail? Because this system of managing glucose can actually fail. And when it starts to fail, we speak of it as pre-diabetes. And when it is well on its way in failing, we speak about diabetes. So what can bring about this failure? So the first is, of course, as I've mentioned, if the diet is high in refined carbohydrates, which, remember, as we have said, will be digested and will be turned into glucose, which will be used to provide us with the fuel for energy. But if we are not using much of that glucose, what is going to happen is that it is either going to be floating around in the blood or it is going to be converted into fat. So if we make this habit of providing too much of these foods that turn into glucose to our system, we are going to start overworking the pancreas. Remember, we say that the pancreas is in charge of instructing what is going to be done with the glucose that has been absorbed from our digestive system. So if the pancreas begins to be overwhelmed, it will, of course, do its best to produce as much insulin as it can. But the thing that happens is, after a while, the cells refuse to listen, to put it that way, to listen to the instructions of the insulin to absorb more of the glucose, because they don't need it. They already have enough. And this is when we start noticing that the system is not working very well, because normally what will happen is that the cells are very ready to absorb the fuel because they need the fuel for their procedures. But if the fuel is too much, it's as if we are at the petrol station and we are filling our engine, and we are filling our tank. The tank is already full, but the petrol attendant does not switch off the pump. It just continues pumping. What will happen is that the excess fuel is going to start pouring out onto the ground. And of course, it can lead to all kinds of problems, including starting a fire. So this is the same thing if we keep on eating a diet that is flooding our system with glucose. Then after a while, we have all the glucose that we need, and the cells reject absorbing any more. And so this glucose is going to remain in the blood, and the body is going to try to get rid of it by various ways, one of which is through the kidney. And that is why the illness is called diabetes mellitus, which means that the urine has got sugar. The urine is actually sweet because now the glucose is being excreted through the urine. But remember, the kidney is not supposed to do this work. This is supposed to be the work of the pancreas and the liver. So when it becomes problematic and the kidney is now forced to get rid of the excess glucose, what is going to happen is that the kidney, since it's not equipped to deal with this in the long term, it's also going to start failing. And that is why, for the many people who often ask me about the supplements that we recommend for people who are under dialysis, the first thing I always ask them to check is whether the person is pre-diabetic or diabetic, because it turns out that diabetes is one of the major causes of kidney failure and kidney disease because of this process that I'm talking about right now. So another point that can cause failure of the glucose system, the glucose management system, is a sedentary lifestyle, because the sedentary lifestyle limits the amount of energy the body uses. Remember that our ancestors grew and lived very active lives. Most of the people, if you're of my age, you know that when we were young people, everything required a lot of walking and a lot of working. So from morning till evening, there was always something to be done. Go out to fetch water from the river, to fetch firewood, to go and see friends, to do all sorts of things, all of which meant that we were very active, which means that our system was working well using the fuel that was being provided. But times have changed, and now our lives, we can do a lot while seated. Many of us earn our living sitting down, and we actually can spend the majority of our days seated. But of course, this is quite problematic because our system was built to operate in a certain way, that is that high activity way. And we continue to eat even though we are sitting the whole time, because we still get hungry, because our minds are working. We are now doing more of intellectual work. And of course, intellectual work also takes energy. Just being alive takes energy. But we also need to be active, to have our muscles and our skeleton active. And if it is not, then we find that if we keep on eating the same type of diet, then what is going to end up happening is that we are going to flood the system with glucose, which it does not need and cannot use, because we are spending most of the time sitting down. And for that reason, we need to be careful if we have got an occupation that requires long periods of sitting. We should periodically get up and walk about. We should include activity in our lifestyle, maybe to spend 20 minutes, half an hour or so every day walking, whether it is at a local shopping center or a local park, or maybe we are members of a gym or something. We need to incorporate activity in our lifestyle, because we are not supposed to be sedentary beings. So that is why the sedentary lifestyle can contribute to the breakdown of the glucose management system. Then, of course, as our body becomes progressively unresponsive to the instructions of insulin from the pancreas, we are going to reach what is called prediabetes, where we now notice that we are not managing our glucose very well. And if this is not rectified, then we develop full-blown diabetes, which is, as I said, a very problem that is common and is becoming even more common and causes very many other health problems for us. So some of the symptoms we'll start noticing if we are the prediabetes is becoming diabetes is that there is going to be a tendency to be excessively thirsty and also frequent urination, because of course if we are thirsty, we are also going to be going for short course very often. This is when the kidney is trying to do its best to get rid of the excess glucose that is that the body is trying to get rid of. There will also be other problems like chronic candida, the yeast infections. Because of the amount of sugar in our system, it's going to attract some of these unfriendly microbes, such as candida, that likes glucose. Then other health issues that will be linked to this failure of the glucose management system will be high blood pressure. I've already mentioned chronic kidney disease can originate from this. Excessive fat gain, failing eyesight, because there is going to be damage to our certain parts of our eyes. And there can also be the sores on our legs that do not heal easily, because the excessive glucose in our tissues is preventing the healing. There will also, of course, be quite a bit of inflammation in the system itself. And there are also certain kinds of dementia that have been linked to diabetes. So just to note that this tells us that it's not a simple problem that I've got too much sugar in my system. It is actually a serious situation which can be the origin of a lot of health issues. And that is why we really need to make an effort to educate and to assist people who have already been diagnosed or who have got a family history of someone having type 2 diabetes, because it would, let's say if my mom had diabetes, then it would mean that I have to be watchful. Remember, we say that just because we have a gun and it's loaded, we do not have to pull the trigger. Once we know that this thing is in certain members of our families, we have to be cautious and not wait until we develop the problem. So then a few points I wanted to note as I finish this part of my presentation is that people of African origin are almost twice as likely to develop diabetes as people of European origin if they are taking a large amount of refined carbohydrates in their diet. So we are, the people of African origin are at a greater risk. The risk is not equal. And that is why, for instance, when we adopt the Western diet, we need to understand that our body is going to rebel against it even faster and is going to turn into a disease situation quicker. So for that reason, if you know that you are of African ancestry, then it is important that you actually are preemptive about this. And then the next thing is that most of the available treatment, the normal treatment for diabetes that you'll receive from your medical practitioner, is going to help to deal with the symptoms. Unfortunately, it does not prevent the disease from progressing. So you might be able to bring down your blood sugar, but the effects are going to continue damaging your system. So the most important thing for this is to change the lifestyle, because the illness comes as a result of our lifestyle choices. The solution and resolution is going to come as a result of changing our lifestyle choices. So, of course, this is not to say that we should not seek medical assistance. We should seek medical assistance, but take responsibility of adjusting our lifestyle in such a way as to eliminate this problem. Because it is true, and I think many of us who have been doing the business for a long time have had many success cases of people who have been able to resolve their diabetes and improve their quality of life, and in fact normalize their blood sugar. Of course, it means that for the rest of their lives, they'll always have to be careful, because I've also had situations where someone gets such a good response from using the products, and then they imagine that they have been cured and they go back to the bad habits that led to the problem in the first place. So this is not that kind of a thing. It is a way in which the body has been damaged, and it means that we cannot go back to the habits that brought about the damage. Now, let me go to the Neolife products that we recommend for anybody who has inquiry, or someone who we want to educate about what we can do for diabetes. So the first and the most beautiful addition, I think it was among the latest addition to our Neolife supplements, is Botanical Balance, which is a superstar in helping with managing our glucose metabolism. So Botanical Balance is a herbal preparation that research has shown to promote the proper regulation of blood glucose. So to help our body to maintain that blood glucose within that range that I spoke about. And I personally can attest to the fact that there have been quite a number of people who have found this very, very beneficial and helped them to recover and start the road to reversing diabetes in their lives. Then the next one is Tree and N. Tree and N, remember, is our grain oil supplement, which maintains healthy cell membranes, which means that the cells will now be operating better with the instructions of the insulin. Remember that after a while, the cells stop responding to the insulin because they've had enough and they have enough of the glucose. So Tree and N is going to help us to restore the health of our cells and thereby contribute to normalizing our blood glucose. Then, of course, we always say that Tree and N is the best foundation of supplementation we have, and it is especially important for people who have got diabetes or pre-diabetes. Then the third supplement that we'll recommend is fiber tablets. We also have the multi-fiber blend. It may have other names in different markets, but there is a powder form of fiber or the tablet form of fiber. Both of these can be used, and they are very helpful in assisting the body to manage glucose by slowing down the rate at which glucose enters the blood circulatory system. By slowing this down, it gives the body time to regulate and manage the blood glucose. So fiber tablets or the multi-fiber blend, or all fiber, I think is called in our market, will be quite useful for that. Of course, with fiber, also remember we can increase our dietary fiber if we maybe want to be cautious about this. So our dietary choices can also increase the amount of fiber that we have. Then the fourth product is going to be omega-3 salmon oil, which improves the functioning of the pancreatic cells. Remember the organ that I mentioned, the pancreas. So omega-3 is going to help the pancreas to function better and to deal with the issues that it has to deal with, and also to resolve the inflammation that comes from having this high glucose situation in our body. So omega-3 is the next recommendation. We also would recommend multimineral alfalfa to support the liver and the kidney function so that they are able to do their work well. But also just to say that if we are dealing with someone who has already got chronic kidney disease and we find that they have also diabetes, then apart from recommending what can help the kidney, we also need to add botanical balance there, because if they do not resolve the problems with the glucose, they are not going to be able to help their kidney because the problem is originating from the glucose problems. So that is why I very much appreciate the addition of botanical balance to the Neolife family, because it has come at a very crucial time and it is doing an excellent job of helping us to help those around us to fight against diabetes and the many, many types of damage that it does to the body, because it is becoming the leading cause of blindness. It causes all these sores that never heals. Many people end up having to use dialysis machines because their kidneys are failing. And of course, we know that high blood pressure has become another huge problem. All of this can be helped by us working towards managing our blood glucose better. So those are the 5 supplements that I would recommend in that order. So the most important will, of course, be botanical balance, threonine, fiber. We can then add also omega-3 salmon oil and multimineral. Then a few last points just of lifestyle. We should educate our clients about, and our communities about the importance of trying to exclude the excessively processed foods that are now part of our lives, and to, as much as possible, return to our traditional, minimally processed foods. We would also generally reduce the amount of carbohydrates in our diet and replace refined carbohydrates with minimally processed carbohydrates. For example, we've got very many examples of alternatives to refined grains. We have got things like arrowroots, yams, sweet potatoes. We have got legumes. We have got many different types of vegetables. And just a note that if someone already is pre-diabetic or diabetic, fruits are no longer a good idea, especially the very sweet fruits, because many of the fruits that we now have been hybridized to actually be very, very sugary. So if you already have sugar issues, it is very important to limit the amount of sweet fruits that you have. It is better to opt for the fruits such as avocado, which have got healthy fats in them and have almost no sugar in them. This would be better options if you can think about others. But so in this case, we would say that leafy vegetables and different types of vegetables would be a better choice of fruits which are not sweet. Then we should also, another point of lifestyle is to incorporate activity in the lifestyle by walking more, taking up sports, avoiding sitting for prolonged periods, because this increasing activity in our lifestyle also improves our cells' sensitivity to insulin. So our cells will be performing better in following the instruction that insulin is passing to them. Then, third point is that unless someone is sick or is under certain a doctor's supervision, adults should reduce the frequency of their meals. So this can be done gradually, but the idea is to reduce the amount of the number of times that we eat per day, because the system benefits from taking a break from digesting food and absorbing nutrients. So you can aim for reducing to either 3 meals a day or 2 meals a day for adults, because this makes it even easier to manage your food, so that you can plan which types of food you're going to eat, and thereby make sure that, for instance, you see, if you're eating 3 snacks a day, then you will have to keep on thinking about each snack you are eating and how to make sure that it is not going to be problematic. But if you are eating 2 or 3 times a day, it's much easier to plan your meals in such a way that you are eating in a way that supports your glucose management system. And finally, the stress hormones actually contribute to the problems with our glucose management system. So resolving stress in our diet, resolving stress in our life actually is going to help us with our glucose management. So we can resolve stress in various ways. I think we have got a topic about stress resolution. So we'll talk more about that during that topic. But remember that things like exercise also helps in resolving stress. Things like mindfulness and meditation and other such things can help us in resolving stress. So we have a topic on this, and I think I will not go into it just now, but to just create the awareness that stress hormones, for example, like cortisol, are actually linked to problems with our glucose management system. So when you are resolving your stressors, you are also actually improving the diabetes or pre-diabetes. So I see that Pascal is ready here with the next session. I want to thank you very much and wish you excellent work during this month of September. And I hope that we have all set our goals and we are working full steam ahead as we see that we are in the last quarter of a year. So we really need to push so that we make sure that we are achieving our goals, because as I tell you often, when we achieve our goals, it means that someone somewhere has had an improvement in their health, in their quality of life, and also in their wealth. So let us all go out there and do what we do best, which is make a positive difference in the lives of the people we meet. Thank you very much. Here is Pascal now standing by to take you through the business session.
Thank you very much, Betty. Every time I hear the training about diabetes, I am more aware of the things I need to do and the things I need to not do. So I think it's a learning opportunity for all of us every day about the products, about the business. I would like to share with you 2 things this evening. Maybe I think either this last week or the week before, we've spoken about it, and that is prospecting. What really gets our business growing is getting new people in the business. It is the core of our business. And therefore, the most important skill you need to master in this business is prospecting. That is sponsoring, bringing new people in the business. The lifeblood of any network marketing business is new blood. You need to keep getting new people in the business. Why is that important? Because the more people you have, the more volume you generate, and the more volume you generate, the more income you earn. So I would suggest that take time, master this process of sponsoring. And I find that when I sketch things out, I find it easier to understand and explain to people. I remember when Betty and I started the business, Hansi Cronier and Johannes van Eden drew for us this W on a flip chart and said, look, their businesses work, the W. What does the W stand for? The W actually stands for the process of bringing new people into the business. When does it start? It starts with a prospect list. A prospect list is a list of people you want to show the business. Of course, maybe you can say that it starts from a suspect list. A suspect list is anybody that you see walking around you. When you write their names down on the list, they become prospects. That means there's a possibility that they could become your business partners. They could become people in your team who promote the Neolite products. So start with the prospect list. And there are 3 rules about prospects list. Number 1, write their names down. Number 2, do not prejudge. Number 3, tick their names off the list. What does that mean? Talk to them. And please remember that people will join the business when 3 things have happened. 1 is they know you. Number 2, they like you. And number 3, they trust you. Once these 3 things happen, people are likely to join your business, okay? It doesn't mean they will, but I'm just saying it increases the likelihood of them joining your business. They know you, they like you, they trust you. Yes, they say, okay, I want to get involved in the business. So write your prospects list. The next thing is learn how to invite them professionally. Inviting people to look at the business is a skill that is very, very important in the sponsoring or the recruitment process. A few things to note. Number 1, when you're calling somebody, just ensure you're in a positive mindset or a positive frame of mind. Why is that important? When you pick up the phone, the person on the other side of the phone will detect whether you're enthusiastic or not, whether you're feeling discouraged or not, whether you're enthusiastic or not, they will pick it up immediately. All right? So put yourself in a good frame of mind before you pick up the phone and speak to your prospects. The other thing about inviting is always go to the point about the reason for your call. For example, you pick up the phone and say, Kathy, this is Pascal. Do you have a moment? When you ask that, do you have a moment, you give in the message that you care about their time. You respect the fact that you're intruding into their time and you're asking me a permission to speak with them. Is this a good time to speak with you? And I say, this is very quick. I have a question for you. Would you be open to look at a way to generate additional income? That question is designed to filter out the people who may be interested and who may not be interested. Most people will say, yes, I'm interested. Some will say, I may not be interested. When they say, when you ask the question, are you open to look at the business? Say, I don't have much time now, but I'd like to share some information with you. I'd like to send you a short video, or I'd like to send you material to look at. But before you do ask the question, if I send you the material now, would you be able to find time to look at it? The answer is yes, I will find time, or no, I don't have time. Most people will say, yes, I will have a look at it. Then you ask the next question. So if I send it to you now, when do you think you're going to watch the video or watch the presentation? When you ask such a question, the prospect's now's mind is running. They're thinking about their time allocation. They're the ones who need to give you the time they're actually going to look at the video, or they're going to have a look at the information you've sent to them. Don't impose on them the time limit. Ask them the question. If I send you to this information, are you going to look at it? Yes. If you look at it, when do you think you're going to look at it? Then their mind is working, they will give you a time. Oh, I think I'll look at it this evening. Say, okay. Then you ask a third question. So if I send it to you this evening, you'll be able to look at it this evening. So tomorrow you can have a chat about what you have seen. And the reason you ask it that way is to make sure that the responsibility to look at it rests with your prospects, not with you. If they say yes, you can call tomorrow, we discuss it. Then you say, okay, I'll send you the video, look at it this evening. Tomorrow I can call you so that we have a discussion about what you looked at. That is when you're using a tool like a video or a clip or a presentation. The other option is to invite them for a presentation, a one-on-one presentation or a face-to-face presentation. You may ask and say, Alan, do you have time tomorrow at 10 o'clock? I need about 10 or 15 minutes of your time to explain to you the business concept that we are involved with. Okay? Some prospects will ask you, what is it? Say, no, I would like to show you some information. You see, when you say that, it means you want to be there physically present with them to show them what you want to show them about the business. When I know some prospects want to get more information to satisfy their curiosity, my suggestion is let the curiosity stay. When I said, look, this is some very important information I'd like to show you. If you meet on one-on-one, it will take about 10, 15 minutes. I'll show you what we are doing and answer all your questions. And then you do a one-on-one presentation, or you invite them for a business opportunity presentation where somebody experienced will explain the business on your behalf. When you go for a one-on-one, be there on time, carry some material, and a number of things you need to do. Number one, thank them for meeting you. Number two, ask them what their goal in life is. It's very important to ask that question. Most people actually don't know what their life goals are. So don't worry if they cannot give you an answer. Just tell them, look, it's okay, you can think about it later, but I'm sure you'd like to earn an extra $500 a month or $1,000 a month. Such a statement will capture their attention, okay? And then tell them your story. Tell them your story after you've asked them what their goals or plans or dreams are. The reason you tell them their story is because stories sell, facts tell. Be careful about overloading your prospects with a lot of information. What is important is tell them their story because they can easily relate to your story, okay? And your story should have 4 steps. Number 1, what you did before you started the business. Number 2, how you came to join the business. Number 3, what has changed? What has Neolife done for you or in terms of products or business? And number 4, how the future looks like. Once you've told them your story, you explain the business concept very quickly and very simply. We use a range of products, then we get other people to promote and use the same products. That is really what our business is. Once you've shown the business, the next step, which is the bottom of the W on the right-hand side, is to follow up. Why is this important? Because the average person will not make a decision immediately. The average person will make a decision after 5 to 8 exposures. So don't give up on anybody and don't feel discouraged because somebody is not saying yes immediately, okay? So do a follow-up. Three answers are possible. Number 1, they will say no, they're not interested. Number 2, they may be interested in the products only, they don't want the business. Number 3, they want to be business builders. So those are the 3 options of answers you're going to get from the prospect. If they say yes, then you repeat the same W process with your new distributor. 1, they write a prospect list, you teach them how to invite, you teach them how to show the business, you teach them how to follow up, and you teach them how to get their new people started. That's how you get new people in the business. So this sponsoring process is very important, but something very key that is important in this whole process. Remember, you are not salespeople in this industry. Selling is a very small part of our business. Your main responsibility is education. Educating people about nutrition, about health, about cleanliness, and about how to leverage and make money. That's actually what you're doing. So remember, your main responsibility is educating your prospects. Act as a consultant. Don't act like somebody who is out just to sponsor people, get people in the business. Act like a consultant or a farmer. Remember the patience of a farmer. A farmer always knows that if they plant seeds, some are going to grow. It will take a whole growing season, and it will take delayed gratification for your crop to come in. So be patient with yourself and be patient with the people you speak to. Remember, the key thing is to educate your prospects. And that leads me to something else about this business that is very, very important for success in the business. And it's called persistence. Why is persistence important? Persistence is important because there is no success anywhere in any field without persistence. Persistence is the determination to keep going even when everybody has given up and gone home. Okay? I read somewhere recently, go full or go home. Okay? That simply means you need to make your mind to really persist in this business. So what are the bases of persistence? Number one, persistence is a state of mind. A state of mind simply says, I've started this journey, I will not stop until I've achieved the goal I want. Number two, it is a sustained effort towards achieving a goal. And it depends on the strength of the will. Remember that sometimes you'll feel excited and sometimes you won't feel excited at all. So don't worry if you don't feel like doing the business or you feel like doing the business. What differentiates successful people and others is this. Successful people do what is required to be done even when the feeling has gone away. I heard recently that commitment is doing things even when the feeling has gone when you decided to do something. When you're not enthusiastic anymore, when the excitement has gone down, persistence is when you keep doing what you decide you do, even when the feeling has gone away. That is what persistence is. That is what commitment is. Okay? Number three, it's very important you start with a definite aim or goal. Why is that important? Because it focuses your energy and your attention to what you're doing. Intensity of desire. This is very important because think about this. Which person are you likely to follow? Somebody who is enthusiastic about what they're doing or somebody who is half-hearted about what they're doing? Most people will follow somebody who has got an intense desire to succeed and then have definite plans. What I suggest and what I think is very useful is every day, just carve out a few hours to do your bit. If you're doing it part-time, put 1 hour aside to talk to people. If you're doing it full-time, put 5 or 6 hours a day to do the business. And what is the business? Talking to people. You need to have accurate knowledge about the products, about your business, about what you actually want. And then everything else must become a daily habit. If you have those few things in the place, the persistence will help you achieve your goal. Just to close this, today I normally receive emails from a very successful network marketer called Matt Morris. And he said something that struck me. Over a period of 8 years, he showed the business to 1,000 people. Out of those 1,000, he sponsored or recruited 280. Out of the 280 he recruited, 237 quit the business. So only 43 remained. And out of those 43, he got 6 very serious leaders that led him to 1 million customers. What is the message here? The message here is those who are willing to receive as many no's as possible are the ones who are going to be successful. So remember this. Next time when you meet somebody and you show them the business and they say no, thank God for it, because they've moved you one step closer to the next years. And most of the time in this business, we are so afraid of people telling us no, as if no is a disease. And I think the reason for that is the average person who is 18 years old has had the word no almost 140,000 times. So our mind has been conditioned to hear the word no. If you're a child of 2 or 3, you're going to put your finger in a socket. You hear the parent saying, no, don't touch it. If you're climbing on a chair, you hear the word no, don't touch it, you're going to fall. So the word no has been drummed into our mind so that when we hear the word no, we're actually afraid to hear the word no. But what I want to share with you is this. The more no's you get, the more successful you're going to become. What I would suggest to all of you is this. Today we are about 330 people on this presentation. If you're part-time, speak to 3 people every day. That means per week, you're going to show the business to 18 people, or you're going to talk to 18 people. In a month, you're going to talk to 72 people. If you're full-time, speak to 8 to 10 people every day. And that means you're going to speak to 200 to 300 people per month. If you keep doing this, after 1 year, check your results. Because numbers don't lie, that's number one. Number two, our business follows the law of averages. If you speak to 100 people, you're going to get 1 or 2 leaders. If you speak to 200 people, you're going to get 4 to 5 leaders. And that's what you need to succeed in our business. Our business is a numbers game. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank all of you very much for spending this evening with Betty and myself. I wish you every success during the month. The month is just halfway, so you still have a lot of month to work and achieve the goals you've set yourself for the month of September. Alan, thank you so much for hosting our meeting this evening. And I want to thank the company Neolife and all our distributors who have attended this training. Thank you, good night, and God bless.